In this interview, I meet up with Lianne Phillipson, who is a registered nutritionist, best-selling author, podcast host of Eat This with Lianne, and well-known speaker. Let's welcome Lianne. Thank you, Lianne, for joining me today. Awesome to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. This is such an important topic. So I'm just thrilled to be able to share all that's to come with everyone on the summit. Thank you.
Thank you. I want to start off by asking you, why does good food and good health go hand in hand?
Oh, such a perfect question to start with. Thank you. I've been a registered nutritionist for over 20 years. And actually, when I decided to get into the health arena, there were a few different modalities that I thought about. I thought maybe a homeopath or maybe a herbalist. And then I thought, no, what we eat every day is the most basic thing. And if it's not right, or if there's not the balance that we need to be there, then it's almost like you're fighting against that in everything that you're trying to do, with no matter what remedy or herb or anything like that. So it's foundational. That's really what food is, foundation. And we see it so often, or I see it so often with my clients, that when it's not quite right, then of course there are all sorts of things that can go sideways. And really, we're like a big bag of cells and bacteria, and we're just this sort of synergistic symbiotic being, which has to have certain nutrients in it. We have to have good bacteria in us. And that's when our being ends up working better. And especially when you're looking at children, then it's so important as a foundation that as they're growing, that they have the key nutrients, the key foods. And that's the work that I've done for over 20 years, and really wanting the next generation that's coming up to be healthier than the last, because there's all sorts of challenges that they're going to have that we didn't in our generation.
Yeah, exactly. When you look out there, when you go to a grocery store, the choices, it's a chaotic experience, right? Like, what do I choose? What do I pick up here? What's not good for me, right? So, like, with this conflicting information about eat this, don't eat that, like, how does one know? How can a parent figure it out? Like, what's good for me?
It's a big challenge, and so many parents' heads are spinning on their shoulders every single day. And even if you think, oh, I'll go to Dr. Google, I'll see what Dr. Google has to say. How much should I be eating? Or how many calories should my child have? Or what's the latest and greatest diet to have? And you just end up even more overwhelmed. So, I mean, like I said, I've been doing this for over 20 years. So I'm quite a trusted voice in, let's just break it down and let's just keep it simple, because it is so overwhelming. So really what I talk about again is back to that foundation, back to that place where, what is it that our bodies need? And what we need is many colors. And I'm not talking about like Skittles colors, about eating a rainbow every single day of a mix of fruits and vegetables. And some parents, I can see them already going, oh, really? You have to say that? Because my child won't eat any of that. Yeah. Well, those are the kind of things that I work on, not only my clients, but with the different programs that I offer. But when you break down from all the confusion that there is to a place where you think, okay, we need some protein every day, every meal, if you can, but even plants have a lot of protein. So it's not like you need to serve chicken or some sort of, animal-based protein 3 meals a day and always with the snacks. We need carbohydrates for energy, for fiber, so important for children too, but not the white stuff that comes in all the boxes and that's super refined. And then we need a whole slew of fruits and vegetables in our day. And when you just kind of bring it back to that, it just makes it a little easier to navigate the supermarket, as you brought that up in the beginning. And, the best way to do that is spend most of your time in the produce section And then as you go around the supermarket, then you don't do so much of the aisles where all the cookie packages are, where all the different packages of everything, is. You might need the tomatoes, you might need the tomato sauce. So yes, you sometimes have to do that. But most of the whole foods that you're going to find are not typically like, in the chip aisle or in the soft drink aisle. It's great just to completely skip them and go and go around them, especially if you take your children with you to the supermarket.
Yeah. Do you recommend parents taking the kids? Is that?
There are times when it is an absolutely essential thing to do. And there are times when everybody just needs a break from each other. So sometimes, whether it's mom or dad going to the supermarket, you just need to get the job done. And also there are times when taking the kids, if you're going to hang out in the produce section, that's the perfect time, especially younger kids too, because a lot of parents think, oh God, I can't, I don't want to take my toddler with me and those kind of things. And I mean, right now we're in a completely different time. So a lot of parents are not taking their children with them, but it's also like an educational time. So, wow, look at this pineapple. Look how it smells. Look how prickly it is. Isn't that interesting? Wow, here's a purple carrot. Have you ever seen a purple carrot? Let's take that and let's try it. So there's a lot that you can explore, or maybe go to a farmer's market where you're talking to your kids about food. And I think that's something that as parents we don't do. We just shop, we make the meal and we put it on the table, and then we just want them to eat it. When you get them involved in every single level of this, and also sometimes when you go to the supermarket and then they say, oh, I want the cookies. So you know what, we've had quite a few of those cookies lately. Why don't we go and buy some ingredients to make our own cookies? And in my book, Sprout Right Family Food, which is that one there's a beautiful cookie recipe with like 4 to 6 ingredients in it, which are made just with oats. It's such a quick recipe for kids to make, and they love it. So there are so many opportunities for parents to do things differently, whether you take your kids to the supermarket or not. Have them help you unpack if you don't want to take them to the supermarket. What have we got today? What are we going to make with this? Keep it a rolling conversation all the time.
And when going shopping, like if your kids are involved and you have a recipe, like you're saying a book, they're looking up a recipe or something and they have it and they're only going to buy those items, right? Then you don't have to go in the other places and kind of look for stuff. It's when you're looking for stuff, the other stuff shows up, and then you might have to pick it up on your way, or the kid sees it and they want it, and then you will have a sad kid or angry kid.
And those kind of things is you talk about it before you go. So, hey, here we are. So let's say, you go and get my recipe. So this is the cookie recipe that I've got here. I'll put it for you because it's too cute. Okay. So that's the recipe. So then you say, okay, what are we going to make today? And then you say, all right, we need some oats, we need baking soda, salt, a little bit of coconut sugar, some butter or some coconut oil, a little bit of milk, coconut milk, almond milk, and then some small chocolate chips. And that's what we need. So let's go to the store and let's go and get them. And then when they know that this is what we're going to do, this is where we're headed, then you can just say, oh, well, that wasn't on the list. So no, we don't need that. Come on, let's go and find whatever else we need. Or we must go and find some butter. Let's head and go and find out where the butter is. So you give them a task and you just kind of keep them focused to go in a complete straight line.
Yes.
And then, and then that's it. And then that's what they get used to. They don't, you don't roam the aisles thinking, oh, well, what should we have? And it makes it so much easier for us as parents when we have a list and we stick to it, and you get in and you get out, and then there's not all the extras that we don't even want to eat, let alone just have hanging around. Because if it's in the house, the kids are going to ask for it. Or as parents, you're going to eat it, your midnight snack or something. And a lot of the time you don't want to do that either. So don't buy it. It's not in the house. And then it makes it so much easier on every level.
Exactly. And with the cooking with your family, right? Besides, having a list and going in all of that, there's another part, which is bonding, right? And learning. You can teach your kids so many different skills through that, right? You can even make the even add up the prices from looking at the flyer, look up all the recipes, sorry, all the ingredients on the flyer, and then you can even add up and say how much do we need to take to buy this or something. So there's so much if you get them involved, like you say, right, than just taking them with blindly and then having a fight at the supermarket because you didn't get me my chocolate chip cookies or the chocolate bar.
And let them take pride, let them take pride in that, because what an experience to create a meal, or create a snack, or do something different, and then the whole family gets to experience it, whether it's mom's doing this with them or dad's doing this with them, and then grandma gets to have a taste or something like that. The pride and the positivity that they get from that is just huge. And it's our job, as well as everything else, of course, the homeschooling or the whatever else that's, that we've had to navigate over the past few months. But it's our job to set them up so that when they go off into the world, that they know how to boil an egg, that they know how to cut up something, that they, that they have these skills. And one of my favorite things to do with especially younger kids is go buy some mushrooms and then just give them like a butter knife, or just give them, a knife that you would have at the table, because it's the perfect place to start for them to start to chop things up, bring them up to the kitchen counter, keep them safe, and then just have at it. And then, wow, oh my gosh, this mushroom tastes so good. Thank you for cutting it in half like that. Positive, positive, positive. It just makes the whole experience so much more fun.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And I think you have given us some advice or some best practices about specific nutritional practices that are beneficial, right? So do you have anything more to add to that? You just told us a couple of different ones.
Yeah. So having kids involved, that's really, really important. Having your kids in the kitchen as much as possible. And then also, one of the best practices things that I talk about a lot is getting your kids to be responsible for what they're having, which means that you can make up charts and things like that. So you get the colors out, you get the paper out. And one of the challenges for families is to eat a rainbow every single day. So that's of all, and again, I'm not talking about candies, I'm not talking about sweets, I'm talking about, beets, I'm talking about blueberries, I'm talking about carrots, something yellow, something green. So they need to eat a rainbow every single day. And you can just make up a chart, put it on the fridge, put it on the cupboard, whatever it is. And every day everybody has to check off what it is that they've had. And if they haven't, and it's dinner time, they think, oh, well, we need something green. Maybe what should we do? Should we have some peas, or maybe some sugar snap peas, or some green beans? Then they start to learn that this is what we need to do every day. And having colors on the plate is so incredibly important. And that's a perfect thing to do also with picky eaters, because you're going to get resistance. No, I don't like this. So if you talk about it in advance, and this is something that I talk about, I have a couple of different programs, one called the Picky Eater Playbook and one called the Focus Kids Formula. In both of those, it's so important and so foundational that the whole family is not only doing this, so there's the meal planning going into this, and then the kids are involved in that planning. So they're involved in going to the supermarket, but they're also involved in the planning of each meal. Oh, we need another color. What else is out there that we need? We need something purple. We need something blue. Well, there's not really anything blue, but that kind of thing. What greens can we have today? What reds can we have today? Oh, great. We had an apple. Let's check that off. So once you have that foundation, and that's just the one thing that you focus on, then kids again can take pride in that too.
Yeah, you're building habits, right? It takes time. Like, it's not going to happen, but slowly, when you have those charts, when you're showing them how to add those colors, eventually they'll.
And it does take time. I just had one of the moms just finished off the Focus Kids Formula. It's a 4-week program. We just finished that off, and she said, I think she had a 9 and a 7-year-old, and in the first week, probably almost week and a half, we talk about structure, and by the second week, they were no longer eating in front of the TV. They were all eating at the table. But that took almost 10 days from the beginning, from the mention to actually less time in front of the TV, to more time at the table, to then it becoming, well, this is normal. every single night we have dinner at the table. And then slowly they became more responsible for the snacks that were happening in the day. So over the time that we were working together, or over the time that you're focusing on something in particular, then all sorts of amazing things open up to thinking, wow, my kids are so capable. And
Mm-hmm.
the pride that they feel, and how this just becomes normal for them. It's not abnormal to sit at a table. It's not abnormal. It's just how things are done. You're creating better habits. You're creating new habits that you want to instill in them, and then they'll take those with them forevermore.
Yeah. And why is it that eating in front of the TV, besides other a lot of stuff, but what's the most important thing, why we shouldn't be eating in front of the TV besides the other cultural, and you're missing out the conversation and stuff, right? Nutritionally, there's a purpose, right?
Yeah, well, first of all, your stomach doesn't have teeth. And if you're not focusing on the fact that you're actually chewing and you're just mindlessly shoving food into your mouth, you're not aware of how much you're eating. You're not aware of how much you're chewing. Your focus is on what's happening on the TV. And like you said, you're not actually having a conversation with anybody. It's just a mindless way of, of eating. I did a whole podcast episode. I have a podcast called Eat This with Lianne, and I did a whole podcast on mindful eating. And that was the number one thing. Get off the couch, go back to somewhere, sit on in your backyard, sit at the table, go and have a picnic and sit on a picnic blanket if that's what your kids fancy doing. It could be in the middle of the living room, for goodness sake. It doesn't matter. But it's not with the TV on, because unless you are mindful and you're present and you're in the moment, then also physiologically your stomach doesn't know that you're full to tell your brain to slow down. So if you have a mound on your plate, you're going to just keep on eating it and then go, oh God, I'm so full, I feel terrible, I'm not going to do that again. And all sorts of things can happen. And a lot of parents who have picky eaters, they actually put a screen in front of their kids and they have an iPad there so that they can keep on shoveling. Not right. All the wrong signals, all the wrong practices. It's just not a healthy way of instilling, eating. That's it. It's very basic.
Yeah. And, if we don't show how valuable is sitting at the table and having that conversation also, who is going to show our kids, right? I mean, they're going to lose that habit, and then eventually their kids are going to eat on the go, like walking and eating. I mean,
Absolutely. It's generational.
yeah.
My parents, were British, and the Sunday roast, the Sunday, sitting down at the table, even with extended members of the family, was a big thing. It was a huge time of coming together and a huge time of bonding.
Yeah.
And even though your kids will probably say, oh, I don't really want to, and all that, it's like, this is just how we roll. This is what we do. And like you said, unless it's us teaching them, they're going to learn from someone else, and that's probably doesn't line up with your values or what you would like with your children. Or sometimes if you feel really lost and it's not happening, then do look out to someone either like myself, or find someone who can help you with the steps that you need, because sometimes it just gets too much. It gets overwhelming. So many of my clients and so many of the parents that look for my help, they're stuck and they can't see another way around it. And then just a few little tweaks here and there, and then all of a sudden you think, there we go, everything's kind of unfolding as I really want it to, because parents want their kids to be healthy. That's the end. That's it. That's all we want for our kids. Please be healthy, eat well. Let's not have a struggle at the table, and let's have a lovely meal together. That's heartwarming.
Just in your example that it took them 10 days, right?
It did.
So yeah, it's steps.
So there are some habits, they start off with 1 night, with 2 nights, with 3 nights, but also sometimes parents just get to the place and they think, how did I get here?
Yeah.
How did I get to this place where we're sitting on the couch in front of the TV? That's not what I really wanted to do, but stresses and different situations. And when you're, as a parent, you just think, oh, I just can't, I haven't got it in me, by 5 or 6 o'clock, it needs to be easy. Yeah. So fine, let's just do it. But it's just having that motivation, having someone to help you and know that you can do this, and knowing that it's possible, and then away you go. You can do it.
Exactly. And, there's many members in your family, right? Like, how do you cater what you're going to cook for everyone? And then you touched on picky eaters, and then we'll have picky eaters in our family. And then you make a meal and then they're not satisfied. How do we fix this?
Okay, so this is again, it's kind of like the chart that I talked about with
Yeah.
the rainbow. So it really depends on the family dynamic. However, there are certain nuts and bolts, or certain components of a meal that need to be there. So what I suggest is you just take a piece of paper. Everybody maybe has their name at the top. You draw a plate. So just a nice big circle. And again, get the kids involved. They can put a plate down. They can trace it, however you want to do this. And then draw a line down the center, and then draw just one across. So you have 2 quarters and 1/2. So 1/4 of the plate, that one slice, that needs to have some protein. So you can discuss what is a protein. You can have lists and charts. There's all sorts of things in my book for being able to do this. So you're going to have some protein in there. So that might be some meat, that might be some fish, some dairy, some quinoa, some tofu, some eggs, whatever that happens to be. So everybody knows the protein goes in this particular area. Mm-hmm. Then at the other quarter, then we've got some carbohydrates, whether that's pasta, whether that's rice, whether that's some sweet potatoes, some white potatoes. You've got your more carbohydrate rich foods there. And then the whole half of the plate is open for vegetables. Even again, if parents are like, you've got to be kidding me, there's no way I'm going to get there. One step at a time. So when you get your kids to say, okay, so we need to put vegetables here. What is your vegetable going to be? So this kind of all goes to like the meal planning of the whole family. And there may be just a list that you say make. So, Jack loves these greens and these reds, and this is what Jack will choose from. So it kind of makes easy. And then Jill, she loves these, and these. And then you pull out from that so that you're not, giving someone this and someone that, but also at the same time, even though Jack loves green beans and Jill doesn't, well, Jill still gets a few green beans on her plate just to try today, because today's a different day. And today they might love that instead, but it's not as much as Jack has on his plate. So you kind of can just adjust things. But again, when they're involved and when they're helping make the decision, when they feel like it's not being, literally shoved down their throat, or the ideas and the ideals that are not, this is the plate, this is how we need to eat. And when you take the emotion out of this is what your body needs to have, be super fast, when you go to the park, or to ride your bike really quickly, or to be able to stay up and to be awake so that you can, have a lovely evening, or do a bonfire, or whatever it happens to be that you want them to do, or focus on their schoolwork. So important, because they need to learn, they need these nuts and bolts, and just using the plate really, really gives them that understanding and that visual cue on what needs to be going into their bodies.
Yeah, very. And do you think that picky eating is a habit learned, or is it naturally you're born with it? What is it?
It's a tricky one. So I would say there's a little bit of both in there. So I have a whole program on picky eating, because it really can be that. And the very first conversation that we have in that program is me asking the parents, how are they bringing themselves to the situation? Are they a short order cook? If they put something on the table and, it either gets thrown, or there's a tantrum, or I'm not eating that, or whatever that behavior looks like, that it's not being consumed, do the parents then end up going to the fridge, getting out, the cheese or the yogurt, or whatever it is that is a slam dunk, parents. Now, whenever I say that, parents sit there and go, how do you know that's happening at home? It's like X-ray vision into my kitchen and into my dining room. I do, because that's what parents do. You're always going to go for the easy option, because it makes you, the parent, feel better that your child has consumed something. And so many parents end up, like I said, in that situation. How did we get here? How did we get here that I have to give my kid hot dogs every night? I never wanted to do that. I never thought that's what I was going to do. don't buy the hot dogs. The hot dogs are not in the house. They can't have it. And then you just take those incremental steps towards, and I have all sorts of ways of playing games at the table. And I'm not talking about, food fights or anything like that, but upside down bowl night. I talk about that in my book. Different ways of getting kids involved in what's happening and making it a lot more fun so the stress goes. Because as soon as a parent sits down, they know that they're in for the battle for the meal, and they know it's going to be a tough go. The energy around the table also is just stress. It's just immediate stress. And then nobody's having a good time. And then you're kind of ready for no, I don't want to eat this. It's like, no, but you have to eat that. And no. So parents first need to bring themselves to the table, bring themselves to the situation after taking 3 good deep breaths, and knowing that, you've got the ways in which to come to the table, the ways in which to do that. And then the meal just ends up, it just slowly starts to improve. And then all of a sudden you think, I didn't even notice it was getting so much better. That actually wasn't that difficult when you're not at that loggerhead situation. So there's many, many layers to the whole picky eating situation. And also sometimes when kids are not great eaters, then they end up in like almost a negative feedback loop where they don't have as much appetite. Kids need minerals all the time. So there's actually a picky eater package of supplements. I have my own line of supplements called Take This by Lianne. And I have a whole picky eater package because when the kids get the right minerals and the right nutrients in their body, then it starts that cycle moving in the right direction so that there's hunger, so that there's appetite. And when we get their mineral status to a better level, and then things start to change. So you have to come at it from many, many different ways, which is why I created a whole program about it.
It's a deeper topic.
Very, yeah.
Very, yeah. And when kids say I don't want it, right? How like parents always worry, oh, he's gonna be or she's gonna be without food, right? How do we? I mean, you kind of touched on it. How do I move past and say he's okay? Like, do I just leave them? Just cry? Just walk away?
In some certain situations, that's what needs to happen, really. And that's when we need to look at our behavior. So I also consulted with someone lately who said her 2, almost 3-year-old was just breastfeeding all the time, maybe stress or things changed. And she said, and he sort of really stopped eating food. And I said, okay, we really need to work on this because at that age, he needs a wide variety of nutrients. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with breastfeeding after age 2. However, the situation is that he's not getting the nutrients that he needs and the habits that he needs. But it was mom that couldn't say no. And that needs to be addressed. If we don't address what we're doing as parents first, kids lead by example. They follow what we do, not what we say. There is that aspect to it too. But if you say no, 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 and then you still go to the fridge and you still bring out, the yogurt or the cheese, then they're just going to sit there and say, well, she said no, but her actions were completely different. So we have to follow through. And one of the biggest challenges of parenting is consistency.
Yep.
So don't feel badly that you need someone on your side to help you. And that's really, a lot of the time, that's what I'm doing with parents, because you just get to a point where you are exhausted. You feel like you've tried absolutely everything and you just can't bring yourself in any other way. And you just feel so defeated. So we try slowly to turn that into confidence so that you know that with these steps that you can get to a much better place. And sometimes it is just saying a hard no. Sometimes it's also I say to people, blame it on me. Lianne, the nutritionist, said that's not so good for your body. So let's try something else. If you feel like you need that cookie, let's go and, get the recipe from her book and let's do that instead. There's all sorts of different slight zigs and zags that we can do to get them to a place where we would rather that they are.
Some families have kids who are special needs, right? Like, they have disability or whatever, and they have texture issues, right? Especially with food, certain things they won't go for it at all, right? I mean, but they are nutritious, right? So parents have to find ways. Do you help with that as well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And there are such, I'm going to say, sneaky ways So there's there's different sort of sneaky ways to do this, where you're either, say, blending something in, lasagna recipe, for instance, in my book. The taco night recipe, for instance, in my book, has got grated zucchini and carrots in there. And it is the most delicious, concoction of all sorts. That you can do that with beans if you're vegetarian. So when you put this in here, then they realize, wow, that was so tasty. And then you can say, well, there was carrots and zucchini in that. What? Really? So you just have to work with where your kids are, and then take those steps and just keep on pushing a little bit more, keep on pushing a little bit more, because it's so easy to get to, that many foods that they'll have, because the kids will keep on pushing, and then the parents need the confidence to lovingly and gently kind of push forward a little bit, or experiment a little bit more. It can take 12 times for a child or anyone to enjoy and like a food. And after the second or third time, if someone just says, nope, don't like that, then we give up. And they think, okay, well, that one's off the list. Well, you got to bring it back in again, and you got to try it again. And kids, yes, with special needs, with the texture issues, maybe they're working with an occupational therapist. There are many, many ways to be able to get those nutrients in. Maybe it's a supplement. I have something called Kid Boost, which is a superfood powder that goes into every single child that I get that I managed to get my hands on, because it's so foundational. It has to be there. And then again, even kids with special needs, things start to change. And I can't tell you how many times parents say, I've tried it all. And I think, okay, well, that's also closing off the possibility that your child could do something different.
Yeah, I used to work with some students like that, and then one of the students was completely on a cookie diet that her mom would make, which she tries as a mom. She would add in all the other ingredients and stuff, but that was the only thing she ate every single meal. And sometimes cheese, that was the only thing she ate, was just hard. Like, they're making all these big dinner, like they have dinner, cooking turkey, nothing. She does not like any of it. So it's hard for the family, right? It's almost like she's excluding herself, right?
Yes. And then there's also so many times I have to say to parents, okay, so let's try the turkey again. And the parents say, no, I've done it. I've been there. I've tried it so many times. It's not going to work. I say, well, today's a new day. So we package it, we do something a little bit different with it, and then you try again. But you talk about it this time, and you have the kids at the kitchen this time. You have them there helping you to make it this time. My eldest daughter, who's now 16, when she was much younger, it didn't matter what I did with oatmeal. She would not eat it. Actually, same thing with peppers. She didn't like peppers until she was 8 years old. And then she ate them for probably about 7 years. And then only recently she's decided again that she doesn't really like peppers. I have no idea why. So she still has them in mixed foods. But this oatmeal situation didn't matter what happened, but she loves Jamie Oliver. And there was one video once where he was making oatmeal. So we found the recipe. And I said, sounds great. And it's Jamie Oliver. So she made it. She made it herself. I helped her out. And she actually tried to eat it. And it didn't matter that it was only 2 spoonfuls. And then she said, I still really am having a hard time with it, Mom. But what an experience. It just opened so many opportunities for her. And she realized, well, I realized too, that when she makes it herself, it's a whole other situation. And then after that, I said, okay, well, the fact that you actually tried it and you made it is tremendous. So maybe in another little while, we'll try it again and you might feel differently. If not, at least you've tried it. So win, 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 even though she didn't actually eat much of it. And then I finished.
Nice, right? Good. So I guess you gave a lot of advice on the picky eaters, which is kind of a big problem, right? When you have a couple of kids, one's making, having a trouble with the food, and the other one learns the behavior, right? So it is a big issue. And then especially if parents are gonna, decide to choose an alternative education for their kids and family, they're gonna be home a lot together, right? So there is the meal is going to be 3 meals and snacks.
Yeah.
So what did you notice during, this COVID lockdown and stuff? We kind of experienced, it's not necessarily homeschool, but they did experience that. And did you help parents along during that time, how to manage?
That is exactly why I made the Focus Kids formula program, because parents all of a sudden they noticed that their kids are not focusing, and they didn't want to, tape their bums to the chair so they got their work done. But they also realized that they're like a jack in the box. They're up, they're down, they're up, they're down. And then the snackathon came, it's like the 100th snack of the day. And you just think, you've just eaten, and what, we're going back to the kitchen now? Like, it was just, it just, everything was upside down, and so many distractions for everyone. And of course, parents are trying to work perhaps while they're trying to keep their kids. And then it's like the 100th snack again. And then now I need to make dinner, but you've had so many snacks that now you don't want to have dinner. So why did I even bother? And, it was a lot. It was a lot. So again, just bringing them back to having some structure, bringing them back to the steps that they need to take in order to really just take things back from this chaos and this crazy that was there. And kids thrive on structure. They really, really do. Even though you kind of just think, well, we'll just kind of go with the flow and see what happens. Nobody really likes that ultimately. I don't believe so anyway. And it gives kids a lot more security when they know what's coming. So a lot of planning goes into things. You've got your charts and things like that. All the stuff that came within the Focus Kids formula. The first module was all about the planning, kitchen closed sign, when's the next meal going to be, when's the next snack going to be. Then everybody knows what's going on. Parents can sigh, can exhale. Oh, great, okay. Just takes the pressure off. So, and it took some time for everybody to find their way during this whole situation. And a lot of people have managed to find their ways, and other people have not. So that's definitely what that program spoke to, were those parents who really needed that guidance and needed that help.
Yeah, that was hard, because at school they don't get to eat that many times, because they don't get to go to the pantry that many times.
No, and even I've talked about this on radio so many times, your commute. So as the parent, the commute quite often is through the middle of the kitchen. You just think, what should I grab on my way through? Or, I need to have a break. I don't have a water cooler to go to anymore, so I'll just head back into the kitchen. Oh gosh, look at that. That's sitting there. I'll have another snack. So, for what was happening with the adults as well, is, the quarantine 15 for some is a real situation. Yes. Not that it really matters, because so many people are out and about, and they're walking, and they're doing all sorts of different, there's a bit more time to put into movement, which is tremendous, and also so good for mental health too. But just being so close to such close proximity to the kitchen for everybody is a whole new experience as well. So everybody needs that structure, not just the kids.
Yeah, exactly. And one thing while you were talking came to my mind is, when back in the days when punishments were, big thing, right? In families, if you don't eat your vegetable, you sit there and they make you eat it. Are you a fan of making someone eat it?
No. And I think, I certainly had that. I would sit there for an hour with pork chop in my cheek, like I was like a hamster or a squirrel. And I could not drink enough. I was so full of milk, because of course we had to drink milk then. You got to drink your glass of milk. So I would have to, and trying to get it to go down. Oh my gosh, it was just the worst. It totally made me a vegetarian when I got old enough to do that, because I didn't want to eat any of this meat ever again. So again, it's about the conversation that you have and the understanding that you offer to your children of why are the green beans, the broccoli, the peas, why are these foods important for your body? Taking the emotion out of the situation and really discussing with them, and then work with them to figure it out. Food is not punishment. Food is nourishment from the level that our cells need this. And when you put reason to it, very often for toddlers, and you can start this super early, when you see them at the park and they run fast, and then they come up to you and they're so proud of themselves, so they go down that slide super quick. Oh, you were so much faster today. I remember that you just had broccoli at lunchtime.
Connect.
I wonder if it was that. Let's try that again tomorrow and see if the same thing happens. And they go, really? Ooh, right? There's a reason behind it. It's not just mom and dad saying, sit down and eat your vegetables, because that's no fun for anyone. It's not fun for the parent, and it's not fun for the kids. And it just creates a really crappy association around the dinner table. So no punishment. Food is not punishment. It just takes it completely outside of the situation. If your child is sitting down and they don't want to eat anymore, okay, I see that you're finished. Then they can hop down from the table. And then if they say 5 minutes later or 10 minutes, an hour later, you're hungry. Oh, okay, well, here you go. Here's your food back again.
Mm-hmm.
And then they learn that, oh no, this doesn't mean like an hour later I get my ice cream or I get
Mm-hmm.
a treat or whatever. No, 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 no. I see that your body has not had the nutrients that it needs today. So let's just bring that back here. And, when then is another thing I talk about. When you finished a couple bites of this, then we'll move on to that.
Mm-hmm.
And then off you go.
Yeah, perfect. Because you don't want to, again, build a habit of them pushing good food away and then waiting for that. And then consistency, right? The next is you have to be consistent.
Consistency, like I said, it's the biggest challenge of parenting
Hard.
because we have our own, everything that's going on in our day. Then you think, I don't want to, ruin my child. You're not, but you kind of think, oh my gosh, if I'm pushing just a little bit more today, is that going to be detrimental to them? It's very, very difficult to understand where that safe line is of encouragement versus just, a lot of parents just think, well, I'll put it down in front of them and I'll see what they feel like eating today. Totally fine. There's also some encouragement needed for, say, peas that are not their favorite, or
Mm-hmm.
carrots, which maybe they don't love as much. Well, you just think, okay, well, let's just have 2 carrots on the plate today, and you kind of work with that and you work that in, and it's not the punishment, but it's also not sort of a completely child-driven situation.
Yeah, yeah,
There just needs to be some middle ground in there that of encouragement, really.
yeah. You probably have parents coming to you who have the child in control of the dinner time or whatever time it is, meal time.
Yes, it happens a lot.
Yes. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because we're so like afraid that our kid's not going to eat and starve, so we keep giving in, right? And that's what parents do.
It happens all the time. I'll just head, and I joke about sort of the yogurt and the cheese because it's easy. It just
Yeah.
comes out of the package. You don't have to then make another meal or anything like that. But then the kids just sit there and they watch you. They just follow you and they say, "Got you again," and that's just, it's not a place that parents want to be.
Yeah.
They really don't. They want to sit down at the table and they want to have a lovely time. They want their kids to eat healthy. They want them to be strong, to grow up, in a healthy body. We all want that.
Yes, yes. I do. After COVID, yes, me too. I mean, all of us, right? I mean, I feel like my clothes, I can feel it, difference, right?
Yeah, and you don't end up feeling great. I think that's the most important thing. People come in all shapes and sizes. How do you feel in your body? That's the most important thing. And also, if you're not feeling great about yourself, that affects everything else.
Yes.
So, and as you said, if there was ever a time for us to focus on our health and our nutrition, it is now,
Mhm.
without a doubt. The immunity,
Yes.
it can be impacted by what you eat. There's many things flying around that say, no, it doesn't matter. Do you know that sugar slows down your immune army for a period of hours? Some say 4 hours, some say 8 hours. So while you think, oh yeah, I'm just going to go and get a chocolate bar on my way wherever it happens to be, and then you're maybe gone to the supermarket or something, your immunity was not what it was before you ate that sugar. So
No.
it's an incredibly important conversation to have and an incredibly important understanding to have that food does impact everything in your body.
Yeah. Very, very important. We talked about planning and preparing food with your kids are so important, the meals, right? We
Yes.
talked a little bit about it. And can we touch on that again, how important that is? Because it actually eliminates the picky eaters even, right? I think.
It can, in certain situations, having your kids involved. And, one of the favorite things that I always suggest is do take your kids to the farmer's market. Obviously, we're talking, COVID aside, the best case scenario is that your kids are involved in every level. We've got to keep them safe. So going to a farmer's market or going somewhere right now may not be the best thing, but as things start to open up and you feel safe and confident that they can go, and do those kind of things. So if not, then when you get the food home, then you say, come and help me. Come and help me unpack. Oh, we've got some carrots this time. Should we grate them or should we cut them? Or maybe we'll just quickly peel it and we'll eat it now, right here on the floor. Or have the kids get them up at the countertop, again, age appropriate. Kids who are 6, 7, 8, 9 can totally be in the kitchen making all the foods. Give them a grater, give them a carrot, away they go. They can sit there and eat it if they want. Sometimes even just having the kids in the kitchen, they can eat their dinner of vegetables right there and then. So then by the time they get to the dinner table, then it's a much smaller plate, or it's a much smaller meal that they're having.
Mm-hmm.
So kids are just like adults are. When you're invested, when you're making the effort for this, then you get to see the rewards on so many different levels. So really, really incredible to have your kids involved in the kitchen. And it really can be a huge game changer from the picky eater standpoint to just kids learning how to cook. We got to teach them.
Mm-hmm.
We don't, they're not going to know.
Yeah, you don't want them leaving with that skill, right? Because then guess what they're going to eat? They're going to eat the convenient food when they get to university or living on their own, because they don't know how to cook. It's not they don't want to eat it, but they don't know how to cook. So that's one of the things that's why I wanted to have someone like you here, because I think as the homeschooling starts at home in the fall, if parents are thinking about it, this is something they can incorporate it into their day, and it actually helps the parents. I mean, they can start stepping away and let the kids actually make it, right? Like you can give them the ownership of creating the dinner or whatever the meal. And
at a certain age, 10, 11, 12, it depends on the child because they're all so different. Okay, you're in charge of dinner.
Yeah.
Away you go. And then they say, well, I can't do that. And I said, well, of course I'll be here. I'll be your sous chef. I'll be here to help you to be able to do that. However, let's figure out, or something that I love doing is let's have a snacky dinner. That's perfect for kids to pull together.
Mm-hmm.
So there needs to be vegetables as a part of snacky dinner. There could just be some hummus on the table.
Mm-hmm.
There could be, a little bit of cheese. There could be, a charcuterie board type of thing. It's fantastic. There doesn't even have to be any cooking involved, or how to use leftovers for the next day. So if you've, made chicken the night before or whatever it happens to be, it doesn't matter. Risotto. I have a baked risotto recipe in my book. That's tremendous something to have as leftovers, and cold too. It's delicious. So there you go. Make a quesadilla. All the vegetables that you've chopped up at the beginning of the week can then be chopped up and then thrown in between 2 wraps with some cheese. Hold it all together. Presto. So easy to do. So many possibilities.
Yeah. Very, very important I think as parents are thinking to go into this, to get that. And I mean, so many valuable skills you can teach too, right? Even, I mean, I'm just, as you're talking, thinking about all the math concept, you can just teach it through it and you'll be done. You don't even need a worksheet after that.
Yeah. Ditch the worksheet. Here, let's have some real life situations of what are the ingredients. What if we double the recipe? What if we half the recipe? The salmon burgers, the salmon cakes that are in my book call for 4 cans of tuna or salmon, but very often I have the recipe. So there's a 1/4 cup of mustard and a 1/4 cup of mayonnaise in there. So we just sort of take that 1/4 cup and then we got to have it. So there's an 1/8, all sorts of math concepts.
Great. Yeah, even shopping is math, right?
Absolutely.
Putting together a bill and stuff. So it is something that families should just take it and use it. This concept of cooking, right? You say, what do you mean when you say making the most of the meal?
Yes, making the most of the meal. So that can be on every level, depending on the meal. It's making the most of every mouthful, and not to make that a really pressured situation, but making the most of the meal could be, okay, so today's meal or breakfast is a hard-boiled egg with some toast cut up into little fingers, and that's the meal, and a few berries on the side. Perfect. It doesn't need to be complicated. But when you break down that meal, as I talked about with the plate, where you have some fruits or vegetables as half of what there is, some protein and then some carbohydrates, that's really the easiest way to make the most of the meal, is to have a structure involved around what meal times look like. And then everybody can just fall into place and think, okay, well, if I'm going to pack a lunch now, even though you're not actually going to school, we need some protein, we need some carbohydrates, and we need some fruits and vegetables in there. That's really easy to do. Okay, so let's just stick to that.
Yeah. The biggest fight I think parents also have is with the sweet stuff, right? Like the dessert. Like parents sometimes say, eat this and I'll give you that, eat this and I'll give you that, right? We kind of get into that battle. So what do you say to those parents that do take the dessert as some kind of bargain with the kids? Eat this much and then should we get into a relationship like that?
No, just
No.
don't. I interviewed someone on one of my podcasts who wrote a book called "I Love Me More Than Sugar," and the concept and what he talked about was it is the biggest form of punishment. Sugar, the biggest form of punishment, and that resonated so much with my listeners that some people just all of a sudden started to go sugar free because they just thought, well, let's just see how I do without sugar in my life. Mm-hmm. And they're thriving. And the things that have come from that, and I'm not suggesting that you just take sugar out of your kids' diet or out of the family's diet, but you again take it one step at a time. Or my tagline for my podcast called Eat This is one mouthful at a time. You have the opportunity to take one mouthful, to make the choice of what the next mouthful is going to be. And there's so much power in that. And if you want a cookie, okay, go and have a cookie. But look at, why did you want that cookie in the first place? If your child wants that cookie and they're on the floor and they want that cookie, their blood sugar level is in their baby toe, because it's just they're crashing. So when was the last time that they drank water? When was the last time that they actually had something to eat? And was it in the structure of the plate that I talked about? Was there some fat in there? Was there some protein in there? Was there some carbohydrates that weren't white and, just, some 3 white crackers or something like that? Well, that's not going to keep them going for very long. So there's many layers to the whole sweet and sugar thing. And when kids say, oh, I want dessert. Well, they only learned that from you, that dessert has to be something sweet or some sort of treat or something. If you need dessert or you need more food, well, here's an apple, or here's a banana with some almond butter or peanut butter dolloped on the top of it. There's so many possibilities that you can have instead of the typical. And then maybe you decide that, on the weekends, these are the kind of thing we go to the ice cream store or whatever happens to work. But when you think about, oh, you've been such a good girl today, or, you cleaned your room, let's go and have an ice cream. There's no association between those two things. You create that association, but one has absolutely nothing to do with the other. If you decide that it's a hot, beautiful summer's day and you want to go and have some ice cream just because, then do it. Then it's fine. It's not a problem. But just don't associate it as a reward, or don't take it away because it's a punishment.
Yeah, both are important. Yes. And you've already talked about this too. Like I'm asking after you talking.
I know.
But how does the food affect kids' mental power?
Oh, this is a huge one. It's like, I created a Focus Kids formula. So, that was just so that parents understood that there is a direct correlation between the food eaten and focus and mental health, even for adults. Yep. So it's a really important thing to understand that the food that's going in, whether it is the eat a rainbow every day or whether it's not, it really, really impacts focus, concentration, memory as well. We don't have any essential fats in our diet. I have, as one of the products over here in my line, I have an omega-3, which is so crucial for IQ, for mental acuity, for understanding, for retaining, for that memory. But maybe parents don't like fish, so they're not offering it to their children. So that's when a supplement comes in. That's when it's important to get to use a supplement in that case. And it can make a huge difference in a child's life when they have the right nuts and bolts. And again, when parents actually, the best story that I have that I talked about as I was launching the Focus Kids formula was a mom. I was helping her with her baby. She had a son who was about 6, but I was helping her with her baby because her baby, she wasn't feeding her enough fruits and vegetables, and she was very constipated and she wasn't sleeping. So we got rid of all the white stuff, all the boxed stuff that she was buying. And we started to get all those fruits and vegetables into her daughter's diet. It was a transition, but I was there with her every step to make sure that she felt confident about what she was doing. That's really important. And then the whole dynamic of the family started to change. And then she started to put more fruits and vegetables on her son's plate. And then slowly the habits that they had of even doing a drive-through every week because it was Treat Friday, would go and they would sit in the car and have some sort of drive-through. And I said, well, you can make all of that at home. You know that, right? And she said, well, that's what I did when I grew up. And that's what I feel that I need to pass on to my son. And I said, okay, that's totally fine. Over time, over time, she suddenly realized, this is not something that I want to instill in my son. This is not a habit. This is not something that I want to pass down to my child. So then they started making my crispy chicken nibbles at home. Then he started to get involved in making them at home. And then one day she woke up and she said, his behavior is totally different. I have my son back. I did not realize that this child, her words, this terror at times, I was like, where did my kid go? I had this lovely, sweet child. And as she changed things, she just saw it for herself. It was just a natural unfolding. And in the end, she said, wow, I didn't anticipate that. I didn't think that was going to happen. So she affirmed to herself. She didn't even need me to deal with the 6-year-old. We were dealing with her baby and everything that was going on there. And then it just naturally evolved and naturally changed in the family dynamic. How powerful is that?
Yeah.
That has changed the trajectory of the whole family now. And it's step by step, one mouthful at a time.
As you said, it's such a fundamental to our living, right? Food, the foundation.
It is the foundation.
Yeah. So if it's all messed up, no wonder our kids are not able to sit and do work.
That's right.
Yes. I mean, that's something else that COVID also proved to a lot of parents, that how much ability their kids have in order to sit and do something for a certain period of time. And that's related to food. And that's why I wanted to bring you, because it's so important for them to know that we're a system, right? Whatever we put in
shows on the
output it in some form. And that's the output we're seeing in some kids. So yeah, thank you so much. It's been
for having this conversation, because I also believe that there are many parents that don't correlate the two together. They don't put the cause and effect together of what happens with food. And so I hope that this has opened up many parents' eyes to the potential of what can happen with food. Now, no shame, no guilt, no, oh my gosh, I've been doing this all wrong. You can only do better when you know better.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Nobody needs to feel bad, but it's just one step at a time, change it and make it better, right? And I know that it actually happens because when you work at school, right, we have 25, 30 kids. After lunch, it's like a crash. They're supposed to be more energetic if they had, most of them are crashing because the food is not providing the energy that they need, right? So it does make very direct, connection to it.
And I have something for your viewers, if they want to head over to sproutright.com. That's obviously the name of my book and also the name of my company. So sproutright.com/focus. And then right there will be some information, some really great snacks that you can sort of start to implement and just make a few steps towards where you want to be.
Yes, exactly. Thank you so much. It's a pleasure having you here. Thank you.
I'm really thrilled to have been a part of this. Thank you for having me.